I intend to stay with Tesla as far into the future as I can imagine. There are a lot of exciting things that we have coming. Obviously, the Model 3 that's coming soon. We'll be unveiling the Tesla semi-truck.
Elon Musk may be facing a crisis that money and influence cannot easily fix. His empire is bigger than ever, yet Tesla is under pressure. His AI ambitions are drawing scrutiny, and questions about his leadership are becoming harder to ignore. Supporters still see a visionary pushing technology into the future. Critics see a billionaire spreading himself dangerously thin. And as the pressure builds across his companies, investors and the public are starting to ask uncomfortable questions. So, is Elon Musk finally reaching the limits of his own empire? Tesla faces a new reality. For years, Tesla operated in a market where its position seemed almost untouchable. Elon Musk's company helped turn electric vehicles from a niche idea into a major force in the auto industry, while its name became closely tied to innovation, speed, and the promise of a different automotive future. But the environment around Tesla has changed. Established automakers and newer electric vehicle companies are competing more aggressively, giving consumers more choices and making the road ahead far less predictable for the company that once appeared to set the pace. Tesla remains enormously valuable and influential, so the situation cannot simply be described as a collapse. The more important concern is the pressure building around its future. In its own filings, Tesla acknowledges that stronger competition could affect sales, market share, and profitability. That admission matters because the company is no longer operating with the same sense of limited competition that helped define its earlier rise. Every new rival creates another challenge for a business expected to maintain extraordinary growth while defending its position. At the same time, Tesla's future increasingly depends on more than selling electric cars. The company has placed enormous importance on autonomous driving technology and the possibility of robotaxis. Those ambitions could transform Tesla into something much larger than a traditional automaker, but they also raise the stakes. The bigger the promises become, the more closely the company must be judged on whether those promises can eventually become practical realities. That is where Elon Musk's role becomes especially important. Tesla's identity remains deeply connected to its chief executive, making his decisions, priorities, and public image difficult to separate from the company itself. Yet Musk is not focused on Tesla alone. His attention is also spread across several other major businesses and ambitious projects, creating a tension that is becoming harder to overlook. Supporters could argue that this broad vision is precisely what makes Musk different. His ability to pursue several difficult goals at once has been central to his reputation as a technology pioneer. From that perspective, dividing his attention may not necessarily be a weakness. It could represent another attempt to reshape entire industries simultaneously. But there is another interpretation. Tesla requires consistent execution at a moment when competition is intensifying and expectations surrounding autonomous technology are rising. If the company's future depends heavily on decisions made by a leader managing multiple enormous ventures, questions about focus naturally follow. That does not mean Tesla is finished. It means the standard has changed. Musk is no longer simply trying to prove that electric vehicles can dominate. He is trying to deliver the next stage while competitors close the gap. And that makes every decision far more consequential. Musk's empire may look diversified, yet its biggest strength could also be its greatest vulnerability. What happens when every ambitious bet depends on the same decision-maker? Can one person keep all these moving pieces aligned? And what warning is already emerging from Tesla's latest moves? Let's find out. One man, many empires. Tesla is no longer the only major force built around Elon Musk. What began as an electric vehicle company has expanded into something far more complicated, with several enormous ventures now moving in different directions while remaining closely connected to the same central figure. Tesla remains the automotive and energy centerpiece, but alongside it sits SpaceX, with Starlink extending that empire into global connectivity. Then there is X, the social media platform Musk acquired, and xAI, his major bet on artificial intelligence. Together, these businesses form an unusually broad network of technology, transportation, communication, data, and computing ambitions. That expansion is part of what has made Musk so difficult to categorize. He has repeatedly moved between industries that most executives would treat as separate worlds. Electric vehicles, rockets, satellites, social media, and artificial intelligence now exist within the wider landscape surrounding his name. To supporters, that range can look like extraordinary vision. It suggests a leader willing to pursue several difficult problems at once, rather than remain trapped inside a single industry. But that structure also creates vulnerability. AI needs massive computing power. SpaceX controls satellite infrastructure through Starlink, and Tesla is developing connected transportation technologies. As these ventures increasingly overlap, the success or failure of one could influence perceptions of the others. That creates an unusual dependency. So many major projects ultimately revolve around Musk himself that questions about his attention become questions about the companies. There is no simple dividing line between the executive managing one business and the entrepreneur pursuing several enormous visions simultaneously. The larger the empire becomes, the more difficult it becomes to separate Musk's personal priorities from the strategic direction of the companies carrying his name. Tesla's own 2026 filings add another important layer. The company has taken specific steps to retain Musk through major compensation arrangements, highlighting just how significant his continued involvement remains. On one hand, that can be viewed as recognition of his importance to Tesla's future. On the other, it raises a deeper corporate governance question. How much of Tesla's future is tied to one individual? Diversification can protect an empire when one business struggles, but it can also multiply the number of problems demanding attention at the same time. Musk's growing collection of companies may therefore represent both his greatest strength and an emerging source of pressure. The empire is expanding, but so is the burden of keeping all its parts moving in the same direction. Tesla's future may depend on more than its stock price. How much can one company rely on one man before strength becomes exposure? What happens when his attention is pulled toward another ambition? And could that move force investors to question everything they thought they understood? Stay glued. Musk's power faces a reckoning. The pressure around Tesla is no longer limited to sales, competition, or technology. Increasingly, attention has turned toward the person at the center of the company and the extraordinary amount of influence he holds. Elon Musk's relationship with Tesla has always been unusually personal, but years of legal battles, compensation disputes, and shareholder decisions have raised a difficult question. Can a company remain strategically stable when so much of its identity and future depends on one executive? That question became especially visible through Musk's 2018 compensation package. The agreement became the subject of litigation in Delaware, placing Tesla's leadership structure and Musk's enormous financial reward under intense scrutiny. The dispute was not simply about money. It exposed the unusual balance of power surrounding the company, where shareholders could depend heavily on Musk's vision while also questioning how much authority and compensation should be concentrated in his hands. The legal battle eventually moved in Musk's favor when the compensation package was restored. By then, the award had become enormously valuable as Tesla's stock appreciated. What once appeared to be a controversial incentive had transformed into a massive financial stake, making the relationship between Musk and Tesla even more significant. Tesla did not simply leave the matter there. The company later created additional mechanisms intended to retain Musk, reinforcing the idea that his continued involvement was considered important to its future. His importance was also reflected in his ownership and voting power. An April 2026 SEC filing showed significant Tesla ownership and voting influence, giving the issue another dimension. To supporters, this arrangement can look logical. Musk helped shape Tesla's identity, pushed the company into areas traditional automakers had largely avoided, and became inseparable from its public image. From that perspective, retaining him could be viewed as protecting the company's direction. But the same dependence can create a vulnerability. If one executive becomes central to strategy, branding, investor confidence, and long-term expectations, any uncertainty surrounding that executive can become uncertainty surrounding the company itself. The question is therefore not simply whether Musk deserves extraordinary rewards for extraordinary results. It is whether Tesla can maintain stability when so much of its future is concentrated around one person. That tension becomes even more important as Musk's ambitions expand beyond Tesla. The more companies and technologies demand his attention, the more complicated the question of dependence becomes. His control may remain one of Tesla's greatest advantages, but it may also be becoming one of its most closely watched risks. And if that balance begins to shift, investors may face a choice that goes far beyond compensation. Trust the vision or question the concentration of power behind it. At the top, and that acceleration may be more dangerous than it looks. How much can an empire spend chasing tomorrow? What happens when AI demands billions before delivering returns? And could Musk's bet expose a weakness investors haven't noticed? The next chapter may reveal where danger begins. Keep watching. Musk's biggest gamble accelerates. The next pressure point in Elon Musk's expanding empire is artificial intelligence, and this time, the scale of the bet is difficult to ignore. SpaceX's 2026 public market debut brought a new level of attention to Musk's space business, while Starlink continued generating substantial revenue and rapidly expanding its subscriber base. On the surface, that growth appeared encouraging, but beneath it was a far more aggressive strategy, one that was pushing SpaceX beyond rockets and satellites and deeper into the enormous costs of artificial intelligence. The shift matters because SpaceX is no longer simply being judged by the success of launches or the reach of Starlink. The company is also investing heavily in infrastructure designed to support AI ambitions. During the second quarter of 2026, SpaceX's capital expenditure reached roughly $18 billion, with approximately $15.8 billion directed toward AI infrastructure. Those numbers reveal just how quickly the scale of the strategy has changed. For Musk, the logic may be clear. Artificial intelligence is becoming one of the most important technological races in the world, and controlling the infrastructure behind it could create opportunities far beyond the traditional space business. Starlink provides a growing connectivity network, SpaceX provides launch capabilities, and AI introduces another potential layer to the system. Together, those pieces fit into a much larger technological vision. Yet, the financial question becomes harder to avoid as the spending increases. Strong revenue growth can make enormous investments easier to justify, but investors eventually need to see what those investments produce. The more money directed toward AI infrastructure, the greater the expectations surrounding the technology that follows. At some point, the story has to move from spending to results. And SpaceX is not the only part of Musk's AI strategy expanding. xAI adds another major technology venture to an empire already containing Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink, and X. That creates additional technological and financial complexity, while increasing the number of projects competing for attention and resources. The expansion also brings new forms of scrutiny. Grok, the AI system associated with xAI, has faced regulatory attention, creating reputational and compliance concerns that Musk's other businesses must now contend with. That means the AI push is not occurring in isolation. It is becoming another source of pressure around an already complicated network of companies. From one perspective, Musk is simply doing what made him successful, entering difficult markets before they are fully developed and committing enormous resources to ambitious goals. From another, the strategy raises a more uncomfortable possibility. He may be creating so many massive bets that each one requires extraordinary execution. Musk is therefore not responding to pressure by slowing down. He is accelerating into an even more expensive and competitive future. And as the spending grows, the question becomes unavoidable. How long can the empire keep absorbing bigger bets before investors demand bigger results? And as scrutiny tightens around Musk's expanding empire, another question begins to emerge. Can speed outrun accountability? What happens when regulators, investors, and consumers stop watching separately and start pushing back together? And could the next battle expose a weakness even Musk cannot simply outscale? Stay with us. Musk faces mounting scrutiny. The pressure surrounding Elon Musk's empire has reached a point where money and technology alone cannot settle every problem. As Tesla, XAI, and SpaceX continue expanding, another challenge has become increasingly important: accountability. Every new venture brings greater influence, but it also places Musk under the attention of more regulators, investors, consumers, and institutions. The question is no longer simply what Musk can build. It is how those businesses respond when their decisions create disputes, raise concerns, or attract official scrutiny. One of the clearest examples has emerged around XAI and Grok. The artificial intelligence system has faced regulatory attention over its image generation capabilities, adding a new layer of concern to Musk's rapidly expanding AI ambitions. Canadian privacy authorities raised concerns surrounding Grok's capabilities, prompting changes from XAI. The issue demonstrated how quickly an ambitious technology project can move from innovation into questions about privacy, responsibility, and compliance. The scrutiny did not stop there. In the United Kingdom, the privacy regulator opened an investigation involving Grok and X, focusing on concerns related to data handling and harmful content. For Musk's businesses, these developments represent a different kind of challenge from ordinary market competition. A rival company can be answered with a better product or a larger investment. Regulatory questions are different. They can require explanations, changes, and compliance with rules that cannot simply be bypassed through greater spending. At the same time, disputes surrounding Tesla's governance have continued, with Musk's involvement across X and XAI adding another dimension to questions about corporate leadership and oversight. His expanding network of companies means decisions made in one part of the empire can become relevant to another, especially when the same individual remains central to all of them. Then there is Musk's political activity, which has created an additional source of concern for Tesla. The company's own proxy materials acknowledged that his political activities had become a subject of shareholder concern. That detail matters because Tesla's public identity remains closely connected to Musk. When his actions generate controversy outside the company, the effects can still become part of the conversation surrounding the business. From Musk's perspective, moving quickly and taking larger risks has always been part of his approach. Supporters can see the growing scrutiny as the unavoidable cost of operating at such an enormous scale. Critics may see something more troubling: an empire expanding faster than the systems needed to manage its consequences. That is the emerging accountability trap. Every new company increases Musk's reach, but every new company also creates another point where regulators, investors, and the public can demand answers. Scaling the empire may increase his influence, but it can also multiply the pressure surrounding every decision. Everything Musk built now faces its most complicated test yet. Can his relentless ambition still overcome mounting pressure across every front? Could the empire's greatest strength become its greatest weakness? And what happens when even Elon Musk can no longer control every moving piece? Stay tuned. The empire's biggest test yet. The picture surrounding Elon Musk is more complicated than either his supporters or critics might suggest. Tesla remains enormously valuable and influential, and its July 2026 China-made sales showed a substantial year-over-year increase. That matters because it demonstrates that Tesla still has significant market power even as competition and expectations continue to change. At the same time, SpaceX and Starlink are producing genuine growth. making it impossible to dismiss Musk's wider empire as a collection of speculative promises. That is precisely why the situation is so difficult to judge. The evidence does not support the simple conclusion that Musk is finished. His companies continue to grow, attract attention, and pursue some of the most ambitious projects in technology. Yet strength in one area does not remove pressure in another. Instead, the growing size of the empire means Musk must keep several demanding stories moving forward at the same time. Tesla still needs product innovation and progress toward its autonomous driving ambitions. SpaceX faces the challenge of justifying enormous spending on AI and infrastructure while continuing to expand its core operations. XA, I must deal with technical, legal, and reputational challenges as its technology attracts greater attention. X remains part of the same broader ecosystem, adding another layer to how the public views Musk and the companies associated with him. None of those pressures alone proves that the strategy is failing. Together, however, they create a much more demanding test of execution. Every major project requires resources, decisions, leadership, and eventually, results. The more fronts Musk enters, the more difficult it becomes to maintain the same level of focus across all of them. That does not make his ambition a weakness by itself, but it makes the consequences of missed expectations potentially more significant. Investors now face a difficult question. Are Musk's enormous ambitions laying the foundation for another phase of technological dominance, or are they creating an unusual concentration of risk around one individual and his ability to execute? There is no simple answer yet. What can be seen clearly is that Musk's empire has never been larger. Tesla remains powerful. SpaceX and Starlink continue to expand. AI has become a central part of his future plans, while X and XAI add further complexity. But his number of simultaneous challenges has never been larger either. That leaves the larger story unresolved. Musk may still be capable of delivering the biggest transformation of his career, yet the very scale that once made his vision extraordinary may now be creating its own pressure. The question is no longer whether he can build something enormous, but whether everything he has built can keep moving forward at once. So, what do you think? Is Elon Musk's empire becoming too big to control? Or is this simply another chapter before his next breakthrough? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.